Alright, so this presentation and video is for the technology assignment in the class TESP 503, which is the solo teaching. My name is Scott Tandy, and this is all going to be pretty much based on why I became a teacher, some of the reasons behind that decision, some of the hurdles that I see as far as resiliency is concerned is as a student and as an educator, and ways that I view you can overcome those hurdles. And then I will kind of end it with a little peek into my own educational background and how that background has formed some of my educational values. So, to move on, the reason why I became a teacher is I chose to become a teacher after I had started instructing and coaching archery. So, as you can see on this slide of the presentation, um, I'm actually in the top left corner there shooting a recurve. You've got a compound shooter and another Olympic recurve shooter on the side here. When I started coaching and teaching those lessons is really where I found a love of passing my knowledge on to others. And I also found that situation where a student has that light bulb in their head go off, and that was pretty much the best moment of any lesson that I've ever had, is when that light bulb goes off and you see the realization that somebody has just learned something new. Now, as teaching as a calling, to me, teaching is very much a calling. It takes a certain disposition, in my opinion, to be an effective teacher, which not all people may possess that said disposition. Um, through this calling to be a teacher, I have become more connected to people in general and to my own community in turn. Teaching has given me many opportunities to be more active in my community, helping out through community services and such, as well as given me purpose and drive to make my own community a better place through education. Since by educating the young, they pass it on as they grow and communicate with others throughout their own lives. So by teaching, you can affect your community later down the road as a large. Now, about those hurdles, much of education can be related to an endurance test where a person's resiliency is tested on a regular basis. As a student, I experienced this throughout many long nights of completing homework after I had sports practices or a game, and then coming home and trying to catch up with all my schoolwork. Now, as a coach and an educator, my resilience has shown through situations that may have involved disruptive students in the classroom or in my archery lessons, or a parent's behavior towards me in regards to something that they disagreed with that I did, or a teaching style that I used, or anything like that. As well as situations that deal directly with educational red tape, trying to get my own thoughts or ideas past administrative bureaucracy and that kind of stuff. And I do realize that those steps and processes are needed and required, and I very much respect that. But to be realistic, I do view that educators do need to have that resilience in order to get their voices heard through all that red tape that I've been talking about. Now, I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining by any means, since the presence of my resilience is actually due in large to all of the good and uplifting situations that I have encountered on a much more regular basis as a coach and as an educator. Like I kind of said in the beginning, there was when that light bulb goes off. That is like the golden moment that I love seeing in every single lesson. That keeps me going no matter what else happens in that class. To continue on this kind of resilience topic here, some examples of situations where resilience may be necessary, like I mentioned before, would be when students show disruptive behavior, or when a parent, say, adamantly disagrees with an aspect of my own teaching. To get through this, and in order to strive as a teacher, I find it important to take those, quote, resilience testing solutions with a calm and collected mind. If I, as a teacher, am confident in my methods of instruction and the class management that I have prepared before the school has even started and implemented throughout my teaching process, then those bad situations can be resolved smoothly and logically, if not avoided altogether, which is the outcome and the hope that I have as I prepare for a year of teaching. On a kind of side note, actually a spiritual note, as a teacher who is also Christian, I will always look at education through the lens of a Christian worldview, meaning that all of my students are equals. There is no better student or worse student. I will treat them as equals, everything like that. They all have the right and ability to learn, and I want to reflect that in my own teaching. Now, as far as religion is concerned, if any questions about religious topics arise from students themselves, I will be absolutely more than willing to share my own thoughts and knowledge about whichever topic it is, regardless if it's my own religion, Christianity, or other religious topics. I will be more than happy to address those questions. Kind of to backtrack a little here on why I became a teacher. If the reasons that I became a teacher, none of them were actually because or in part due to any specific cultural beliefs of mine or experiences or any social justice causes. I found the love of teaching, to be honest, purely by accident as far as I'm aware. During my last year or so as an undergraduate student at Cal Poly Pomona, I had no intentions of becoming a teacher. I was an engineer for several years, and then I chose to be a pure mathematician for the rest, and I wanted to find a career in those subjects directly. Now, when I started coaching and offering tutoring in math for a couple of high school students is where I truly found my love of teaching and that light bulb moment. And that is when I started focusing on becoming a teacher as my career of choice. So on here, I just wanted to kind of point out, like, on the left image here is that math. That's my drive. That's the topic that I want to specialize in. I find it fascinating every time I learn something new. And archery on the right side is actually me at a tournament, but that's where I actually initially found my love of teaching and met several educators that were already involved in archery that I never knew about until then. To finish this presentation off, I want to address stuff in regards to the formation of my own current educational philosophy and values. My personal education has had a profound effect. All throughout my primary and secondary education, which I went to the Ontario Christian schools, both their elementary, middle, and high school, so I was in private school for a majority of my life there. Most of what I experienced was all very traditional style teaching, where it was lectures with all the students sitting quietly in rows taking notes, and then the bell rings and you move on to another class, which is the same drill, just a different topic. On my undergraduate experience at Cal Poly was a little bit of a mix, a little bit of a change here. Most of my classes, I do have to admit, were still in that very formal lecture style where you sit and take notes and you leave. But I'd say about a quarter of my classes were also geared towards cooperative learning as well. Now, when I started taking classes at APU for my teaching credential, I was absolutely shocked at how many activities involved class and group discussions and at the number of group-based activities that were required. Now that I do have experience in both individualized learning and cooperative learning, in these experiences that I can form that I have formed one of my core values of education and as an educator, which is the belief that student content knowledge, communication, and social skills can very much improve significantly more through cooperative learning. And they will see this cooperative learning as an aspect in their future career choices as well. That is the end of my presentation, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for viewing.